also Cabinet Minister of Foreign Affairs and Public Service. Let us all stand, please, as we welcome him.
Thank you very much. Please sit. So good evening, everyone, to our church and to Pastor for the warm welcome, and to the interesting meditation that we just heard a few minutes ago. And it's my honor and privilege to be here tonight, to be with Norma's family. And I also will be speaking on behalf of my cousin, Paulette, who's sitting there, who worked with Norma at the Parliamentary Commissioner's Office. So we all, as a family, want to extend condolences to you on this sad occasion. The starting point for me, though, would be Psalm 90, which you read. And that line that says, "We spend our years as a tale that is told." So in the few minutes that I have left to be with you, I'd like to tell you the story of where this begins. All of her children were very young at the time I first met her. And Christian was not yet born. So it must have been around 1989 or 1990. I was canvassing the Centerville area to run in the House of Assembly in the general election that was coming up in 1992. And my home constituency is Centerville. And the constituency of Centerville included the area which we generally call Roll Avenue. So I was not affiliated with either the Progressive Liberal Party or the F&M. And I had formed a political party known by the acronym PDF. So my friend Terrence Bethel and I went into Roll Avenue and just doing door to door. And I remember the first families that I met, amongst them the Rammings, Elgin Ramming, who's now passed away, and your neighbors right across the street. I think they're the Woodsides. Right. And the first person I met was Norma. And she was living in a very modest house at the time. And it was owned by the Bahamas government. And I think paying rent to the Bahamas government. George Mackey was the Minister of Housing. And the story is she'd been paying rent in this house for so long. The question is, why couldn't she own the house? She and Father Carl. And I went to him and made the case, and he promised he would do it. And he did it. And he also later did something for the Rammings across the street. I think when we had the first rally in that area, it was probably out of your yard. And we could deliver nothing for anybody. So there was no reason for people to be friends with me or allies with me or anything, but they were. And all of those relationships that I formed in those years have survived to today. It is extraordinary to me. Through so many ups and downs, and I remember in particular when Christian was born, it was a very difficult and painful time for your mom. Not only because of the disability which ensued after his birth, but she separated from your dad around that same time. And that was devastating to her. But what I learned coming out of that was that this was a woman who had a tireless, indomitable, indefatigable spirit. She would just keep going. And I really admired that in her. And she made sure that Christian got everything that she could provide for him, and his education. And sometimes she would come and let me listen to him after his music lessons. And today he's a musician. And that's because of his mother. And she was, of course, proud of her brother and his success in the sports world. Proud of all of you. I mean, she always boasted about what a great accountant you were. Oftentimes you I don't know whether you've heard it, but I would often say it. I said it just as recently as a couple of weeks ago. I was talking to the House of Assembly. You know, everybody is consumed by budgets and deficits. And I was saying, one day I was watching television and Oprah Winfrey was on the TV. And she said, she's giving financial advice to people. And she said that one of the things you should do is pay off your credit card bills at the end of the month entirely. Don't have any balance on the credit card bill. I said, well, that's easy for you to say if you were $2 billion, right? You could pay off the bill, right? But what I remember about your mother is that you were just talking about poverty. When you need funds, you have to get it from wherever you can get it from. So I said, you know, if Commonwealth Bank called you up and said, here's another $5,000 on credit, what you can tell them? If you need it, you got to get it. And she did that for all of you, every which way she could find to make sure that you all made it. And that's her legacy to you. What I regret, though, is that the public service is, in some respects, a meat grinder. And these huge bureaucracies can mistreat you in so many ways. And unfortunately, not self-correcting. And she was abused in the Parliamentary Commissioner's office. I don't think there's any other way to say it. And so I was a public service minister after coming back in 2021. And so I would get the complaints, and we were trying to reform the area. And I regret that she's now passed away before those reforms could take place. The problem is with life is that it just takes a long time to get things done. And I think often people who are voters don't understand how difficult it is to change things. In fact, we don't seem to appreciate that very often, even the people who are nominally our allies don't actually believe the same things we believe. And so even from internally, there's a battle and a struggle to bring about change. And some people don't want change at all. So every day is a struggle. And again, that's what I admired about her. And I was shocked when you told me that she had passed away. Absolutely shocked. I was not prepared for that at all. In no which way. But we spend our years as a tale is told. And it heartens me to have heard the words of meditation. Today, I think the verse which talks about people who hate you and cast your name out, I think that was certainly appropriate for this occasion. And it found resonance with me. So that's the tale I tell tonight. I have to leave you shortly thereafter, but I wanted to make sure that you knew what I felt and I believed. And I hope, because people say this all the time, that if there's anything I can do to help, let me know. I'll always, be around. It's easy to say, I tell you that. But I tell people, that it's difficult. You think it's easy to remember people, but it's difficult because after all of this is over and done, things fade away. But I still find, my mother died in 1999, and I still find, after all of these years, something that she would have said I remember, or my father said to me, or the things he did for me. He took me someplace, or my mother took me someplace. I was reminding people how, notwithstanding I'm a public figure, I'm actually quite an introverted person. And as a child, she would force me to do things that I didn't want to do. One of which was to go to a party with my friends. I don't want to go to a party. And she would say, go to the party, and put me in the car, and I have to go to the party. And I go to the party, and of course I have a great time in the party. But when she comes to pick me up, I have to put on a sad face like I didn't have a good time. And she would say, didn't you have a good time at the party? I'd say, no. But I never forgot that, So I've been able to venture out into the world because of something that she did a very long time ago. And I'm sure, as this verse says here, remember me in your heart, your thoughts and memories of the times we loved, the times we cried, the times we fought, the times we laughed, for it is always, for if you always think of me, I will never be gone. So God bless you.